Kaito Bane of Nightmares has seen insane movement across the board for all versions of the card, especially the base version, which saw a big price jump. I mentioned all these cards in my last video, so hopefully you purchased it then because the base version is up $10 to $18 a copy. Last week, this card had a 69% decrease in inventory, and it followed up with another 18% to jump up in price so hard. However, if you're looking to buy Kaitos, you still have the opportunity to buy other versions for their previous prices or close to that. The showcase version followed up its 53% decrease in inventory with a 69% decrease this time around. Again, nice. With no price change. So you could still pick up copies for these same prices previously. The borderless version had back-to-back weeks of about 50% decreases in inventory with only a $1 change. And the textured foil had back-to-back weeks of about 30% decreases in inventory. This card's seeing a ton of play in standard, very strong there. And the base version just keeps going up in price, while these specialty versions are definitely lagging behind. And I'd be shocked if they don't follow suit to at least some degree. Based on how many copies are being bought up, I see it as inevitable. Like, these cards are going to go up in price. And so if you need copies, I'd buy the specialty versions right now because they're cheaper than the base version, and the base version has jumped up pretty hard. We've got a lot of cards to talk about in this video that I think will probably go up in price due to inventory decreases, and a few cards to mention that have gone up in price that I called out previously. But before we hop into that, remember to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss this series because I'm going to be talking about cards before they get expensive. You're going to want to buy your cards cheaper, so make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a vid. I'd also like to thank Arcane Assets for sponsoring this series. Really fun way to test your knowledge of the Magic market, where you can mock, buy, and sell cards and see how well your portfolio does with prize support, and it's free to do. Super fun. We'll talk about it more at the end of the video where I showcase how my portfolio is doing based on my picks. Now let's just get this going. Master of Dark Rites, both the extended art and regular versions, have seen about 30% decreases in listings. The price is still under $5 for the base copy, but the extended version did go up $2 to almost $7. This is likely due to the fact that Edgar Markov is getting reprinted in Innistrad Remastered, and so there's going to be a lot more vampire decks running around, and people are going to want to include this card in those decks. Seems disgusting with Edgar. Next up we have Combat Calligrapher. Minus 27% on this one, along with a minus 20% on the extended art version. Card's pretty niche, very cool. I'm not sure what's driving the price here, but it is a card that's very unique. And it's fun inside of a lot of different decks, especially decks that are more group huggy or political, because it gives your opponent something and you can kind of work that with politics. It's a fun card, a goofy card, and it's very unique. Unique cards like this tend to see some price movement. There hasn't really been much of a price increase at this point in time. Both versions are about $2. We did get a lot of life gain synergy cards inside Foundations, and it looks like it's driving the price of Aloro. Aloro is a long-standing commander, like used to be extremely popular, has kind of fallen out of favor since, but it's got Eminence to gain life. It's a good life gain commander. It triggers all your life gain synergy cards. Seems like a great card to build around if you like life gain, and as everyone knows, especially new players, love life gain. It has seen a little bit of a price increase, going from $16 to $17, but nothing crazy there. With only 38 listings, it's a card that could get bought up pretty quick. I figured I'd be done talking about Arahbo, Roar of the World at this point, because I mentioned it in previous videos, but it's been a few since I mentioned it last, because it had already spiked up in price. I predicted this thing to move, and it did. And now it's moving again at its higher price point. And the cheaper copies are getting bought up really fast. This is going to be pushing $30, I think, in the not too distant future. It had a 21% decrease in listings recently, and its price point's still about where it was last time I actually talked about it in a video. It did dip down and then come back up a little bit. And I think that there was kind of one miscellaneous copy that got listed too low, which was caught by my system in the last video. That was like $13. It's been about $20 for a few weeks now, and now it seems to be like it's going to push up further. I have no idea which of you idiots are buying this card. I know it's cheaper than it was, but Edgar Markov is getting reprinted, and the price is going to go down on Edgar Markov. He's probably going to drop down to like for $30 to $50 in that range. Like I could see him being a $40 card pretty quickly. And if so, why are you buying this card at $70? It had back-to-back weeks of over 20% decreases in listings, and over that time frame went up $7, so now it's $69. Again, nice. But why are you purchasing this card when it's about to be reprinted? The only chance its price doesn't drop by a significant amount is if a very small number of boxes of Innistrad Remastered actually get opened, and the people that open Edgar don't sell them and decide, I'm going to build Edgar. I mean, that's a very real possibility, but I can't imagine the price being this high and continuing this high following the reprint. I think that it goes down to $40 to $50. As I mentioned with Arahbo, people like cats. We just got a bunch of new cat stuff in Foundations, and Leonin War Leader is seeing a bit of an uptick in price here. Over the last 2 weeks, it's gone up about $1.25, but it saw some decent decreases in listings. We had a 12% decrease, followed by a 20% decrease most recently. I'm gonna guess this is for Edgar again, but Baron Sangir has been getting a lot of purchase movement recently. Price hasn't really changed, but it had weeks of minus 12% listings and now minus 21%. You can still pick up copies for $6. Suchi, which just kind of feels like a combo enabler, like this card just feels like, oh, combo, has been seeing a lot of movement. Down 21% this week in listings, only 15 available, and a $6 uptick in price up to $61. We've got a bunch of foil etched cards from different Masters sets that have been seeing a lot of movement. I'm not really sure what's pushing the foil etched version so much all of a sudden, but as you can see here, a bunch of cards that had about a 30% decrease in listings. Something to note, I saw a lot of different foil etched cards pop up on my radar here. These were the higher end ones, but there were a bunch in like that 20% range. We have Red Deck Wins Vintage Cube Card All-Star in Headliner Scarlet seeing some movement, which is an interesting one to note because it was only in that Ravnica Clue edition. So it's really a low supply card, not a real easy way to add more supply to the market. Down over 30 copies over the last week, which comes out to about 24%. Still, you can pick up copies for under $2. But this is a card that the supply can run out and it's really hard to replenish. So I see this as a card that could move up the chain in price pretty quick. We just had the 20 Ways to Win deck come out, and it's got Ghost Shintai as the commander, but oddly enough, there's no Hondens in the deck. Not really sure why that is. However, those Hondens are now getting purchased because people want the Hondens for the deck. Makes sense. Weirdly enough, you're looking at the stats right now. These are all from reprints. These are all from the Masters reprints. Don't remember exactly which sets, but Master reprints down here. The original versions have not moved at all. Like, I think the Honden of Cleansing Fire had a 6% decrease in listings. Like, very, very minimal movement there. But these had a pretty substantial movement, so I figured I'd mention it. I was mentioning Jace the Perfected Mind like months ago. However, the Oil Slick version has had a lot of movement recently. A 26% decrease in listings and still around $15. Price hasn't really changed. Seems like a card that could easily get purchased further. It's a great card inside Standard. It's a good card inside Commander. Mill decks love it. Self-mill decks love it. It's pretty strong, and I can see some more movement here. This is the coolest version too. Atraxa Grand Unifier is considered one of the, if not the best reanimation target nowadays, and the very cool Step and Complete version has been seeing a lot of movement recently. It's about $41 right now. Price has not changed like at all, and it just had 2 weeks in a row of decreases in listings, being 17 followed by 23. Soul Sanctuary is seeing some movement. Specifically, the Borderless is seeing a lot of movement, and so I wanted to mention this. It had a 65% decrease in listings, down to just 57 copies from 163. Over 100 copies have been purchased in the last like 7 days, and the price has gone up like 50 cents. It's still under $2. Definitely something to keep an eye on, and also I'm going to be monitoring the base version as well, because that will probably see some movement if this continues. Persistent Constrictor has had back-to-back weeks of pretty substantial movement. Last week it had a 26% decrease in inventory, and most recently a 38% decrease in inventory. Price hasn't really changed at like $1 to just under $2, like a small amount of movement there, but something to definitely note. Spyglass Siren has been seeing a ton of standard play, and listings are dropping drastically, very quickly. We went from 319 listings down to 202, a 37% drop, and this thing is pushing $1 now. Giggling Skitter Spike has found its way back on my list. Gone up $1.50 since last time I checked stats. However, that was on the back of a 33% decrease in listings, down to just 37 listings on the market. The Extended Art Bristly Bill in particular has had a ton of movement in back-to-back weeks, about 30% decreases in both data collections. And it went up $4 each time, so this thing is moving up in price. It is now $40 for the Extended Art. Flood Pit's Drowner is seeing a ton of play in Standard. It's just like a quarter, like this thing is dirt cheap, but it's seeing a lot of movement. Back-to-back weeks of decreases in listings, 19 followed by 25. Still an insane amount of inventory on the market, but based on the speed that this thing is draining, I can see that going pretty quick, especially because of the fact that you want 4 of these. Rolling Hamsphere had a 22% decrease in listings. It's like a 30-cent card. I'm not really sure what's going on with this one, unless people like Wrecking Ball and Overwatch. And This Town Ain't Big Enough. It had back-to-back weeks of about 20% decreases in listings. Doesn't seem that crazy. However, you gotta look at the inventory on this card, because 20% of like 30 copies isn't crazy, but 20% of 620 copies is a lot. It went down over 120 listings in the last few days. That is insane. That's such fast movement. This card's probably going to continue to see a lot of movement. It's a 4 of in Standard, pretty cool card, and it's seeing a ton of play. Now let's talk about some cards that have had continued movement from the last video. Cards I mentioned in the last video that are still draining out of the market, like Planar Nexus. I absolutely love this card. It's gone up by $2 since I last mentioned it. However, it had a 27% decrease in inventory. It's down to just like 100 copies available. This is a card that I could see easily going up there a little more in price. It's a very fun card. Archangel Athune. Again, we talked about how life gain decks are seeing a lot of popularity right now. Archangel Athune is a fantastic life gain card inside of those commander decks. Last week it had a 24% decrease in listings, now it's an 18, so it's slowing down a little bit. Price hasn't really changed, it's about $30. Up the Beanstalk inside of that combo deck in Standard. It had a 38% decrease in listings and now 22%. Price hasn't really changed much at $3. Torch the Tower, 50% decrease, followed by most recently a 22% decrease. This is a heavily played card in Standard. Red decks love this. It's one of the main removal spells inside Red. The pricing looks a little funky here. It looks like it dropped heavily in price. However, that's due to the fact that the cheapest available copies probably got like $5 shipping or something like that, and that's why. It's not actually a 15-cent card at this point. Steel Seraph Extended Art had a 21% decrease in listings. It's gone up about $1 since the last time I mentioned it. I mentioned Preacher of the Schism last time around. It had a 34% decrease in listings, and most recently a 29% decrease in listings. Price has not changed for either version, and the Extended Art also had a 20% decrease in listings. You can pick up the regular version for $3 and the Extended Art for like $3.50. Now let's talk about a few cards that have gone up in price since the last video. Preston the Vanisher. I mentioned this like 2 weeks in a row, and now this week it is up there in price. It's on an additional 45% decrease in listings to go up about $8. It's now $23, with only 16 listings available. Thrumming Stone Foil Etched. This was a no-brainer with Heir Apparent. It's down to just 8 copies available. It's almost $40 now. It had a 33% decrease in listings, and it went up almost $22. Twin Flame Tyrant Showcase had a 68% decrease in listings to go up $13. The Fractured Foil had an 82% decrease in listings and went up $131. This is crazy. I don't think this card's that amazing. It's good, but not this price point. This is nuts. Card's good, but that's so expensive. However, the Fractured Foils seem to have had a strong rebound recently, because as you can see down below, we got a few other Fractured Foils that had some massive increases in price. The Showcase Herald of Eternal Dawn had a $20 increase, 59% decrease in inventory up to almost $40. And the Showcase Overlord of the Flood Pits doubled in price. 57% decrease in listings, leading to a $6 increase up to $12. And lastly, let's talk about Arcane Assets and see how my portfolio is doing. It's a great way to mock buy and sell cards, test your knowledge of the Magic market, see how much money you can make off of your selections, and there's a leaderboard, and whoever gets first, second, and third on the leaderboard gets some really cool prize support, as you can see here. My picks are going pretty good, as you can see from the leaderboard. I'm currently in 11th, but I think I'm going to be going up pretty quick. You can see here what I have in my portfolio. I think Arahbo Roar of the World is going to be going up significantly more still. I think that I can just hold on to that and make a lot of extra money on it. Planar Nexus I've already been winning with. Soulstone Sanctuary I purchased while I was writing the script for this video, and it's already gone up in price. Lazotep Query, waiting on that one. And there's a few other cards I picked up before recording, being Flood Pits Drowner, This Town Ain't Big Enough, Combat Calligrapher, and Spyglass Siren. Before I recorded, I also sold off my Scrawling Crawlers as I think they hit their max. That is everything I have for this episode of Spicy Specs. I hope to see you next time, and good luck with your purchases. Peace out, everybody.